What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time? All right, here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
You do?
Yeah.
How awkward or nervous?
Very awkward and very nervous.
Well, the reason that this is happening for everybody watching and listening, the reason is because initially, I think Pistol was the most requested guest. And then I had him on a couple of times. And since then, so I think the last time he was on was number 300. Since then, you are by far the most requested guest. So the expectation level has been set through the roof. Good luck trying to live up to all the emailers and people that are saying that they want to hear from you.
Well, thanks. Just thanks.
You're welcome. And we got a big push from our friend,
yes,
Doug Meyer, and so this is for him too, because his initial idea that said I would love to listen to that. And I know we both initially said, I don't think anybody would, but because of him, I think he pushed us both kind of over the edge to say, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. And I sent him that text message that said, thanks, you got me into this mess.
Well, and I thought, if we're going to do it, we might as well do it today, because today happens. I like to make these timeless, but today happens to be our anniversary. So what better day and what better way for us to spend at least part of our day, of our anniversary, recording a podcast together for the first time.
I agree. I just wish we were walking while doing it.
I agree. That would be better. So the first topic that I wanted to cover is actually the symbolism of a wedding anniversary. And oftentimes you'll see things written about or people congratulating others on a certain amount of years, 25th anniversary, 50th anniversary, whatever it may be. And you say, wow, congratulations. What a thing you guys have done. And to me, that's never actually been impressive. What is more impressive to me when it comes to an anniversary with a spouse is actually what you accomplish during your time together. So regardless of how many years you've spent or how many years we count, I care more about making those years count, the things that we've accomplished, the things that we've done. And so to me, 7 years, it's amazing. I think the accomplishments that have happened, and I would attribute, as you know, just about all of them to you. And so that's why I'm glad that we get to do this and that this is about making the years count, not about us counting the years that we're together.
Yeah, I don't think it's about me. I think it's about us, first of all. But no, every year when our anniversary rolls around, I always kind of reflect on, like, since the day that we got married, or just since we've known one another. It's always crazy to me to think of the amount of changes happened in our lives for the better. Just the amount of the things that we've done. It's like, it's unfathomable. Like, you would never think. And I'm thinking of examples in my previous life of what I had accomplished and what my people in my family have accomplished. And it's just really, it's kind of crazy the number of times we've pivoted. And I'm like, I wonder what outsiders looking in might think, because we've pivoted so much.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean over the things that have changed or how we've adapted? Like, what are some of maybe an example or two?
So we've both changed jobs, like significant jobs that we were well established in. We were at a company where we had met, and then we both started businesses essentially around the same time. We've sold a business. We've had children since then. We've gone off to learn like bigger and greater things. I mean, you've built all of this platform off of a simple interest that you've had. And it's just crazy to see over time, like when you start accumulating all of those things, to see like who we were when we got married to who we are today.
Yeah. So I elicited some questions from members of my leadership circle, and I'm going to sprinkle some of those in throughout. to make this more of like we have a third party involved asking us questions and getting us both to reflect and to answer on them. And the first one came from my friend Tom Carvelli, and Tom said he'd be interested to hear the backstory, how we met, how our relationship grew and evolved into what it is today. And I added on to the question, what was the initial attraction? And so, do you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Indifferent.
All right, I'll go. So, I would say how the backstory, because maybe we have different backstories of how we remember the initial meeting, the initial attraction. And I think it's also interesting what was going on in our lives at that time. So and I know we joke about this with other couples when we go out to dinner or something. We chose, maybe not deliberately back then, but we chose to do everything backwards in the fact that we had kids first with other people, and then somehow met at our place of work at LexisNexis. We were both inside sales professionals, and somehow an attraction developed. And I do remember one of the first times, and I think I've mentioned this to you, but you don't remember. We had an outing. Our fearless leader and one of the greatest mentors I'll ever have, the great Rex Caswell, who hired you, by the way, sight unseen at LexisNexis, just off of I believe, a 20-minute phone conversation, which is really impressive on your part. But Rex, anyway, had us, we went bowling, actually, because we did hit some numbers for the sales month. And I saw you bowling, wearing a hat and jeans. And it's so funny. I remember this, the way that you approached the lane to bowl the ball, and then the way that you walked back with this. And you always tell our girls this, and I remember it, walked back, shoulders back, confidence. And you had this a little bit of a swagger and this confidence about you. I remember talking, I believe it was Brent or one of my friends at the time. I said, who is that? I was fascinated by, like, I just like the way this girl carries herself. And I don't remember the date or exactly what happened, but that moment of just being like, I want to get to know that person. I don't see many people like that. And so that initial attraction to me was just in the way that you were carrying yourself. And we hadn't even talked yet. And I knew, though, as Jesse Itzler might say, this girl might end up in my movie. And as I got to know you, obviously, I definitely wanted you in the movie. And so that was my first feeling. We can get into more of the story, but what was yours? Because I don't know if we've fully talked about this.
Yeah, I don't no, I always start when I actually interviewed with you. That's like where I always start from our first
Yeah.
interactions. Because you had recently been promoted.
Yep.
And I was going for a new business position because at the time I was, like, maintaining existing accounts, and I always wanted to get into new business. And I remember there was two managers that were hiring, you and Sean, and I started to have conversations with you, and we exchanged numbers. I think it's because you were recruiting me pretty hot and heavy. We exchanged numbers so we could talk about the territory. And I don't remember or recall. I'm assuming that had to have happened after the bowling outing.
It was. I remember, though, like, you kind of, the way I was thinking in that time when I was recruiting you was that actually work was going before my personal life. So you fast forward a bit, but as I got to know you and your reputation became built, you were the top rep. And so as someone who cared first and foremost when it came to work, I cared the most about building a fantastic team, especially I was becoming a brand new manager. And so your reputation as the top free agent sales professional was what I wanted, because I wanted to build my team. Now, fortunately, you can share why it's good that you didn't choose me.
Yeah, this fraternization. So I didn't choose your team because you didn't have the better territory. In the world where we came from, the product that you had in your certain state was really important. So I ended up choosing Sean's team for the territory. But it worked out because we were able to continue to have conversations. And I remember, like, we had started interviewing, and then we had like a common interest. I went very shortly after or during that time frame to Lake Tahoe to visit a friend. I used to live out there for a very short period of my life. And when Brooklyn, our oldest, when she was born out there. And so I went out there to visit a friend. And while out there, we were messaging one another. And you had just gotten back from your most favorite trip ever that you go to every year with your brother. And that's kind of like where I think it really all started, the interest in one another, from a platonic friends work zone to, oh, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah.
And we haven't stopped talking since.
Well, I remember then the one of the first things that happened was actually a play date. So, you know, you're a single mom with 3 kids. I, at the time, a single dad with 1. And one of the things that as I, you know, I have no idea what I'm doing. You could share some of the stupidity of me as a dad, especially when Ella was young, but had absolutely no clue what I was doing. But one of the things that maybe I thought could be a good idea, and I remember the first time was, I thought you were impressive, but I didn't think there'd ever be like an actual relationship. But we had a play date where we got our 4 girls together, and I believe Ella was she 18 months or maybe younger? I don't remember the exact age. And Brooklyn and the twins were like 2 and 1 or around that age, and we get them together to play, and you know, it was just like, this is really interesting. And at that point, just the same as you, for me, my number one priority I ever thought in a future person to be with is how good of a mom will they be? I mean, that's that's like all I cared about. And so, and so I think I saw that in you really quickly.
Yeah, that was interesting times. I think we all laugh about it now. I always have this saying, like when people say, oh, I feel so bad for Ryan, 5 girls. I'm like, are you crazy? He chose this. We started play dates when the girls were 2 and 1.5 and 1.
Yeah.
Like it was chaos from the beginning. You went from having 1 child not knowing what you were doing, and I'll talk about that in a moment, to having 4 little girls, like 2 and under. And it was so much fun. Like they were all running. I remember the twins were barely walking, and they kept crawling up your basement stairs, and we would go running after them. And I agree. Like it was fun getting them together. But like if we hadn't done things backwards, there's no way we end up together.
Right.
Because what's a guy with no kids? We're young, like not really going to have an interest in a girl with 3 little kids. I mean, you absolutely can, but our worlds wouldn't have collided the way that they did, and put us in that position. But to the point about the not knowing what you were doing, let's just give everyone a taste of this.
It's a long time ago, by the way. Elle's 12 now, so go ahead.
I just remember going over, and he puts her in a high chair, not a wheelchair. I about said wheelchair, a high chair, and opens up the cabinet. It's time to eat. And at that point in time, his diet consisted of chicken on the grill.
Yep.
And I don't remember what you ate with
like
it.
Chips or something.
Chips or Doritos. Basically 2 things.
Yeah.
But that was his meal every night, or Chipotle. And he would literally open up a can of baby food and give her a spoon. And she was 1.5 years old at this time, you know, all the teeth, everything. And she would sit there and feed herself out of the baby jar. I'm like, what are you doing?
No,
you can eat real food.
None of us know what we're doing, though. Like, none of us know. And so you do the best you can at the time. And I did not see there. I hope there are at least guys watching or listening that are like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I could see that. Like, this is my rationale was it's healthy. Like, it's healthier food than something else. And the risk is lowered because I didn't think she could choke on that type of food. So lower the risk, increase the health. Made sense to me. And I remember it being made fun of, thinking like, why are you making fun of me? And this now, obviously I think about this and it's wild, but at the time, like, it made sense to me.
Yes. So I can imagine just that was probably nice to know that there's another option out there, and I might know a little thing or two. I mean, I dove into the parenting pretty quick. I mean, 18 months, 3 babies, like that's fast. So I'd only been a mom for about 18 months and had no idea what I was doing either, but
Yeah.
it's all right.
I want to talk about some of the other parts that were the initial attraction beyond that,
Mhm.
because you're right. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's no way we would have hung out if we weren't in the similar situations from a parenting perspective, and that's why I'm obviously very happy with how everything has happened, even at the time when you're thinking, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Especially
Mhm.
too, like as a having children out of wedlock, there that to me, it was, I think it was maybe even harder on me than it was on you, where I felt my family was fantastic, everybody was really supportive and great, but you still feel maybe judged a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's tough, it's really hard. And so for me, I really battled that, and part of why the beginnings of our relationship was rough at times was because I was constantly feeling that and battling that, and it led to me being at times indecisive and not a great partner, until luckily you kind of had the toughness and the grit and the regular kind of support to continue to say this is the right thing to do, while I was not always great. And I think that is I'm so thankful for that, because I wasn't nearly as mature, as wise, or as good as you were at that time, and luckily it's worked out. But I can't really take any credit for that at the beginning stages, for sure.
Oh, that was interesting. And yes, it was rough with a capital R all the
Yeah.
way to the H into the word. But what's crazy about it is we've talked about this before, and people always say I married my best friend. But I mean, even as tough as some of those times were, every time, I mean, we were literally, it was the roller coaster. We were together, we were not together, we were together, we were not together.
Yeah.
But even when we weren't together, there was very few times or days where we didn't talk. Like
Right.
we remained friends always. And I think that's kind of the stick to itiveness of why like we ended up where getting to where we were because of that foundation. I'll
Yeah.
take some of that credit.
You should.
It's
Well, I
fine.
remember, like, and that was part of what I was attracted to too, is if I list like all the things, it would be a lot. But I think the combination of your confidence and grit and toughness and work ethic and guts. And I remember at one point during a bad part, you wrote an email to Pistol, right? And said to him, like, I don't remember exactly what it said, but I remember reading it and first being mad, like, I can't believe she
Mhm.
sent a note to my dad. But then second, actually really respecting and admiring the guts it took, because how I feel about my dad.
Yep.
And so I was just like, mad mad respect, and it kind of grew into this, wow, like I kind of want to be with a fighter, like I want to be with someone who's tough when it comes, because we're going to face tough things, like this is not going to be, this is actually going to be easy compared to what's going to happen in the future. And that's turned out to be very true. And so there's a bit of luck, and then also like you, and this is advice that I plan to talk about later, but advice you give to younger people, perhaps from a career perspective, is to be proactive, to go after the thing, to not be afraid to go for what you want. And I think that trait, that those qualities are very attractive to me and a life partner.
Yeah, I still remember that. I'm like, he's either going to hate me forever or this is going to turn out the way that I want. I'm not really sure which one. And had I known, I knew you respected your father and you loved him and he was everything to you.
Is
But
and is.
is, yes, is. I should stop past tense. But if I, to the point I'm getting ready to make is if I had known then what I know today about your relationship, that email would have been much harder to send.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of naiveness. And of course, I think, like any great love song is written out of like just being so hurt or having so much emotion like build up. And that's what prompted me to do it, because I was just at a point where I'm like, we're at a fork in a road. Like, I don't know what else to do type thing.
Yeah.
But you have to, like, I think talking to like the proactiveness. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later, but like, you can't just sit on the sidelines and then hope and wish and what ifs and buts, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, why were you so sure when I wasn't?
Um, I don't know. It's not when we are together, it was always so easy. Our conversations have always been so easy. It just is very, very natural. And we have like an underlining understanding and appreciation for one another. We also have very similar views, I think, just in life in general. Like, and I think that that was really attractive to me personally. I'm like, this guy like is really interested in becoming better. He's interested in me. He's always wanting to know why and do more. And it was just easy. I don't know any other way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt right. And then obviously there's just the physical attraction. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't deny that. Like, I really, really was attracted to you. So there was that aspect of it. But then I also knew that the tough where you were, because we had many conversations about like where you stood and with Ella and kind of in your positioning and like what to do, what was right for her. And that you were so like, that was just ingrained in you. And I knew you were in a tough situation because I knew that Elle's your child and she's always going to come first, to some degree. And that was really important to you. And so I always had to keep my rational hat on, but I knew that you loved me. Like, I knew that,
Yeah.
but but you can't like make a choice like between your child and, you know, your significant other. You got to decide to have both. And it just took you a while to get there.
That's true. One of the so aspects of it that I think is important, because one of the questions we've gotten from a number of different people from our leadership circle and outside of that is, you know, what have you done kind of day to day to make the relationship good? And I want to first state, I am definitely one of the last people, I think. I don't know if I should say that, but I would say I don't think you come to this episode to get advice. We're just here to tell our story. I'm not
Yeah.
giving advice. I'm just saying what we do. If you like it, great. If not, whatever. But this is just what I think. This is what you think. This is what we think. This is what we do. And for me, a big word that's important is pursuit. Um, I think one of the keys to us to things going well is the fact that we are always in pursuit of each other, always with action, with intention, with our words, with everything that we do. I think that's really big for me. And one of the phrases I wanted to bring up that was given to me as advice from so many people, both men and women, that, you know, I absolutely despise and think is one of the dumbest things ever, is the phrase happy wife, happy life. It is so stupid. And here is why. In what other world does it make sense that one person has to make the other person happy, but the other person that it all banks upon that? Would you do that at work?
Nope.
Would you do that with friends? Would you do that in any relationship where it's only one-sided? And I realize why people say it, like, oh, just, you know, keep her happy and you're fine. I think it's sexist. I don't think it makes any sense. And I think both people should regularly work on pursuing one another. And that's something that we do really well, I would say, is I consciously think about how to pursue you and tell you so that you feel it and hear it every single day, and not just like, oh, I am the beaten down husband where whatever she says goes, or she's whatever I say goes. No, it's we're always doing these things together and
Yep.
pursuing each other and trying to impress one another. That to me has been, I think, a key to us, to things going well. I'd love to hear kind of like how you think about it.
Yeah. So to that point, I think when we were talking about the journey over the last, 7 years and all the things that we accomplished, I think that plays into it, because the more you do, the more I want to do. Like, so I always feel like I need to continue to impress you because you continue to impress me. And it's just like this vicious cycle, essentially. And our kids probably get really annoyed. I mean, I know they get annoyed by how much we love on each other and talk about one another. And, but there's not a day that goes by where they don't get to hear you praise me or thank me and show your gratitude, and then obviously embarrass them in many ways. But I I 100% agree that I don't like that saying either, and I have a lot of friends who joke and say it, right? But I just, maybe it's my love language. I don't know what it is, but I want to make you want me because everyone has a choice, right? Nothing's ever for certain. And it feels good when I do things for me that make me feel good, which in return makes you want me more, which is what I want.
Yeah, and I think thinking of love as a verb is something we've discussed, but the fact that it is action, it is behaviors, it is things that we do, it is things that we say, especially in front of the girls. For me, because I know from what I learned from my parents
Mm-hmm.
of the fact that kids are always watching and that we are the model, regardless of the fact that they're starting to get to the age where they may not want to listen to us, or even at times they want to be on their own, which I love that they're becoming more independent. Even Charlie at 5 is becoming like that and more independent because she's growing up faster with older siblings. But I think to me, I never want to stop the action part of it, the words part of it, of saying thank you and being specific about what I'm grateful for, of the things that you do, and that they get to hear and see that. I think I've just become much more intentional over the
Mm-hmm.
years as I've matured and grown up a bit to realize we are the models for them, regardless like of what we say. They are definitely watching, and they're seeing how a man treats a woman, how a husband treats a wife, how a wife treats her husband. They're seeing that, and we're the models. And so to me, that's something that is an active thought in the forefront of my mind is, am I being a good model of what an excellent dad, an excellent husband looks like for them? And if I ever fall short, which obviously unfortunately happens, especially if I lose my temper or something like that, which I'm very embarrassed about when it does. This we talked about it. But then I have to get back on track, right? I have to get
Right.
back on track to be that
Mm-hmm.
example. And I know that's like what's so important to me, is that first you feel that, and then they feel that through us doing it together.
Right. I feel so very fortunate and grateful for our relationship and the way that we approach the relationship for this reason, because our girls, like the kids learn so much by just watching the actions, and I want them to understand what a relationship should be when they're starting to get into relationships, not many years later, like, which is how I learned. Like, I made a lot of mistakes because my growing up, I didn't have that same, what we have essentially. So if I modeled the same behavior, I wouldn't, our relationship wouldn't work out. So I I think this is, I don't know if you remember this, but in our wedding vows, you specifically state that you wanted to be a living example,
Mhm.
for the girls, of what a husband and a father should be. And you totally do it. And you just get better and better with time. Like, you're just like a great wine. Like, you just, over time, you are more and more conscious of it because, I mean, this, you invest in learning and trying and to be better. And I get to benefit from that, and the girls now get to benefit from it because they literally see it. And I'm so excited because they're not going to go into relationships fearful or unknown, and hopefully they will be in tune, like, whenever something's not right, when it's not like you and I had behaved in our own home, like when things are out of whack and they're not treated the right way because they grew up in a household where happy wife, happy life. that they'll be in tune to that perhaps. And it might not get them excited, and
Well,
they'll look for something better.
and like not to beat the drum too much with the happy wife, happy
Mm-hmm.
life thing, but like I think of the conversation I had with Patrick Lencioni, where thinking about he talked about how he parents and how he is with his wife and how he works at work, and the fact that confrontation is good, and the fact that we're going to have disagreements, and we obviously do. We're going to have disagreements from time to time, and it's on us then to work through them. And I think one of the qualities that you take the lead on that makes this a lot better for us is when we have a disagreement, or when I do something stupid, we are able to kind of confront it pretty quickly, and then we always just go on, we just move past it. And
Yeah.
that, I think, is a rare quality in a person, and that you possess it somehow. And I'm wondering where it comes from. I don't know. I'm very grateful for it, because there's probably guys listening where they mess up and they might have to hear about it for a long time, and might even be brought up like 2 years later. And that just is not, I just don't relate to that at all. I have no relation to other people that have to deal with that, because I do something dumb. And what if it's like really like yell or raise my voice or get frustrated at the girls if they're not listening or whatever, and do something stupid like yell, and then you will go in our bedroom, you'll say, listen, like, that was really stupid, you can't do that, you need to apologize, you got to do this and this, and then it's done. And then we move on, and it doesn't affect the rest of our day or week or month or any of that. And I don't know, I just think that's worth discussing, the fact that is a quality that is really underrated in a person, but really nice to have.
Well, we wouldn't be together if I didn't do that, first of all, because you racked up a lot of points in the wrong direction. But I don't know where I learned it, but I can say this. I've always been an optimistic person. And I don't like the feeling of dwelling on something. I wouldn't ever want someone, if I made a mistake, I wouldn't want someone to continue to hold that against me. We all make mistakes. We're human. And to be put that right back into your face all the time, it does no one any good. Like, let's just move forward. And so that's just my mentality. And I think when I was younger, I mean, I didn't have the easiest upbringing, right? And I had to kind of grit through a lot of things at a younger age, like in my teen years working and just kind of whatever. But if I were to dwell on all the things that were going wrong and wasn't right, like, I would never be where I am today. And so I always just focused on what's next.
Yeah. I think of the reason that Doug actually pushed me to do this is because we were having a one-on-one meeting. And for those who don't somehow know, Doug Meyer runs Brixie and Meyer here, where you have worked, and where I'm currently a part of the team. And he said to me, like, how you doing? How you feeling? This is like right in the middle of the pandemic, when I had over $100,000 worth of keynote speeches that were signed, sealed, and delivered, all canceled. And so it was a rough moment, because like my business, essentially, I was being told by the universe, you have to pivot and readjust now, or you're going to have to go find a real job. And if I had to do that, I guess, I don't want to do that, but so Doug fully realized that. And as a great leader, he said, how are you feeling? What do you think? And I said, Doug, the kind of the lucky thing about what I have going on is I'm surrounded by positivity. So when I go home, I'm around the most positive person that I know. And when I talk to my parents, especially my dad, my mom's the best, I love her more than anything in the world, but especially Pistol, when we talk, he's the most positive person in the world. And I think the wild thing about, like, part of the attraction too, which is funny, is the fact that I think you embody so many qualities of Pistol, that the combination of like grit and working for everything from a very young age, paying for college, of having to deal with all those things, and then coming out of it and doing extremely well. I would say, like, that is just a really fortunate aspect of what I have going on, is the ability to be surrounded by optimism, by people who believe in me, And again is critical in any type of success that anybody has. I think is having those core people, your spouse and your parents, that are right there, that are like, you're good, we got this, we're going to be okay, like we're good to go. And the cool thing is, like, the business has actually gotten better. It's grown. We're in a better place today than we were 6 months ago, which is amazing to think about. So I would say that's one of the cool parts too about you and what you bring is that type of mindset. And I guess I am wondering if you want to explain or talk about how you've developed that over the years.
Well, I don't think we should discount the fact that you're the same way. Like you have more grit and work ethic and stick to itiveness, and I mean just all of those things. Like you embody that every day. And I think it's easier for me to be that way when you're that way. We remind each other all the time, like we're just going to move forward. But I don't know where the optimism came from. Like I simply don't know. Growing up, I was just always that way. I didn't really, I want to say that I bloomed into that when I got into high school, because I was a really shy, meek kid. My mom ruled the roost at our house. She did all the talking. But going into high school, I had a waitressing job. My aunt owned a restaurant, and I learned so much in a short period of time that I had to bring the right attitude, because I worked off of tips. I mean, I believe my hourly wage when I started was $2.13 an hour, which is nothing, right? So everything was based on tips, and I needed those tips. I had to pay for my car, my insurance, and had to pay for whatever else I wanted. And she said, you leave everything at the door. When you come in here, like you will come in here ready to work. And the happier I was, the more I could put things behind me, the better off I was. And I probably had some of those tendencies before that, but I think that was truly like a pivotal moment in the way that I just kind of approached things. I grew up a lot in those first couple of years between 14 and 16. So there was that. But I think, like, you asked me about me, but I kind of want to throw it back a little bit, because you're the same way. Like we're very privileged. Right outside our house, we've got a park and a big loop that's not quite a mile loop. And we walk that. And many times, like, we have these conversations, and you're putting me in my place just as much as I'm putting in you in your place, from an optimism of like, what's next, essentially.
Yeah, I think it plays off both of us really well, and that's I think critical. One of the questions we got from my friend Chris, he said, "I'm always fascinated by how things start. As you have started the podcast, what did that look like for your family in starting the venture? Also, the dynamic of how much you are involved in each other's careers." And so I'll tackle that. I mean, the I guess interesting aspect about our relationship and careers is, like, we met at work. We've worked together at more than one company.
Mm-hmm.
We're very comfortable working together. I am attracted to someone who exhibits excellence in their craft. It's one of the things I was and am attracted in you, especially with like your current job. You're showing me everything that you do from a sales perspective, and I'm like, I would be so terrible at that job. I'm amazed at how good you are at it, but I think that is an attractive quality. But to get back to the first part of Chris's question about the start of the podcast. So I mean, I've told the story before, so I'll tell it quickly. But I mean, I finished getting my MBA, which, by the way, we have funny MBA stories about how you had to help me out and watch and be there while I could, because I took my classes live online for 6 years in order to get the MBA. But after I finished getting my MBA, I considered going back to school to get a PhD or something like that, and instead decided to choose my own professors and create my own form of a leadership PhD program, because I was in a director position at LexisNexis at the time. And instead of going back to school, I created a podcast because I love the thought of having long form, deep conversations with people I'm fascinated by. And maybe it could benefit other people if I publish them for all to judge and measure to see or listen to how stupid I sound as I'm asking these questions from people far smarter than me. And maybe I could help other people along the way. And I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts. And so the beginning, and I remember we talked about it, and just like everything else, it was just this, I think, undying support of like, yeah, oh, absolutely, like this is awesome, like this, let's do this. And it started obviously as something on the side, as my own school I wanted to create, not as something I ever thought would create a business. And then it later did, which we can get into. But first, maybe I'll pause for you to talk about the beginnings of when I started this show and what you were thinking and your level of support for the things that I do.
Well, first of all, I didn't listen to podcasts. So I don't think I had ever opened the podcast app on my phone when you had decided. But there's just something about so that maybe this is a piece of advice, but when you support your significant other, like when they are like into something. So whether it be working out or healthy eating, like I like, or like at the same time I had started this blog, like we had invested in starting this mom's blog and bringing it to Dayton, a part of a collective. And you supported me and I supported you. And like I get pure joy or an excitement when you're excited about something. And I want you to be excited about something because your life, you have several pillars. And that's one of those pillars. You have to have your own thing. And that's, I mean, it almost seems like a no-brainer to me why you wouldn't support someone. But I definitely think, it takes hours and hours and hours to build something like this. There were many late nights where you would be downstairs doing your thing, or on the weekends you would go and you would be in the basement in the office doing your thing. And I could see where someone's partner would not be excited. Like, no, you've got to come do this. You got to help with the kids. You got to whatever. And I can't even fathom like giving you crap for it. Like I can't even, it's hard because you just want to tell someone, just why would you, like, just pick up the slack. They'll be happier for it. You'll be better off as a couple for it. Like, because it's almost hard to explain, but that's just the way that I view it. And you did the same thing for me. Like when I was doing the blog stuff, like you never once like would say, hey, don't be down in the office for 3 hours. You need to be here helping me or doing whatever. I mean, it was you and I, we kind of have a mutual respect for that. So, and I mean, it's still today. I mean, you put a lot of time in building your business and you just kind of do your thing, but I also just do my thing. And we just both, like, we have a mutual respect and understanding for our other portion of our lives that we're building independently.
Yeah,
So.
and I think that's important too, to focus on leading yourself first. There's a reason that it's phrased that way, and I wrote it that way in my book because I think it's critical before you can lead anyone else, whether it's your family or your team at work. You have to take care of yourself, because I'm not going to be as good of a partner if I'm not chasing my curiosities and obsessions with great rigor. That's just a part of who I am. And if someone doesn't like it, it's just the relationship's probably not going to work. And I feel the same way for you. And I think one of the key moments, I would say, in our lives, and certainly with my career, was I get promoted to be the VP of North American Sales at Elsevier Clinical Solutions. It's a massive job. It's probably too big for me at the time, but I fortunately got it. And I'm still doing the podcast, and I meet Doug through your introduction through that, and we hit it off, and he's his vision was maybe you could do this full time. And I think it would be amazing if you focused 100% of your effort, your working time, on the show, on speaking, on building communities, on the things that you can do. You can help so many people, and I'd love to be a part of it. And so with his support, he offered me the opportunity to leave. Now, with that said, and this is not talking out of school, I mean, it's a dramatic decrease in our income, dramatic, more than half, right? And so I could see there may be people listening who, if they went to their wife and said, listen, I'm going to take a massive pay cut. And we have a high fixed cost when you're paying when you have a house and kids, 5 kids and cars and everything that we have, our fixed costs, just the amount without anything fun, are really high every month, right? And I could see guys saying, "Hey, look, this is what I love. I want to do it," and maybe a wife or a husband saying to their partner, you're insane. What are you talking about? You've got this job. You're making this money. Why would you ever leave? That's just ludicrous to think that you do that. And when we had that conversation, I remember you were almost more excited about it than me. And the thought, I don't know if we've still to this day even talked about the money aspect of it. It was just like, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way. And so maybe we can go inside your head at the time when I come to you with this idea of like, maybe I'm going to leave this big job and go. What were you thinking at that time?
Well, money was never a question. We'd had too many conversations about your happiness
Yeah.
up to that point, and that was more important to me than any paycheck. So I think there's many components to this. So first of all, when you come from not having money, you're not scared of not having money. Like, it's the material things are not important. Yes, we have fixed costs, but I've always found a way. You've always found a way. We're going to be successful no matter what. So I don't care if we have to go back several years, we're going to get back to where we were and beyond then. So like, it was never a question of the money, because I believe in my own ability to succeed and to earn and provide. And I fully believe in your ability to do the exact same. So like the money just wasn't like ever at the forefront of our mind. And we don't live this lavish life. Like we don't live above our means. We just like those things just aren't that important to us. So thankfully we are not, neither of us are that way, because then that conversation, or that never even approached in the conversation.
Yeah. But still, it's still a dramatic change
Yeah.
beyond just the financial aspects of it. But it's a
Mhm.
dramatic change in what we would be doing every day. And
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Um, I Well, there's something that I thought we should talk about too. It's really interesting because now you're building a business. Like, yes, you are an employee at Brixie and Meyer, but you're building something that didn't exist. And so there's a lot of uncertainty there, right? We don't know what's next. Like this year, no one planned for a pandemic. You lost an incredible revenue stream that was basically locked and loaded for 2020, and you had to pivot and change. And yes, it's a little fearful, but and I want you to be happy, and I want you to be successful. And being successful, obviously, like definitely helps with the happiness part. Um, but like I don't know, I like that creative change. I like when things are changing. Like I thrive in that type of environment. I wouldn't be a good hamster on a wheel. I just I wouldn't like it. So that I don't know, I look forward to it, and I look forward to seeing what you can build, even though we can't even like picture like what could be next. Because if we rewind this a couple of years ago, we could have never imagined what's happening today. And it is weird though, like we were working together at Brixie and Meyer. I had my job that was basically kind of created over time. You
Yeah.
have your job that's you're creating over time. And then now I've actually stepped to a different role of where it's like a job. So it's really interesting to see you to continue building something, and then I'm doing this job, and it's a I don't know, but I like the change.
I think the part of the question of like us working together, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of people who say I can never work with my spouse. We can never do it. And to us, it's just been different. That's how we
Yeah.
met. That's where a lot of the respect was built, because we both saw the performance of one another. And I don't know if this sounds weird or bad, but I am attracted to high performers, male and female. I am attracted to them, and that's you. And so part of it, beyond the beauty and beyond all of that, it's like people who are excellent at their craft. I have deep attraction for that, and I still do with people in general as a whole. That's
Yeah.
why I do this show. That's why I have these conversations. But one of the unique ways that we still work together on a regular basis is you have, and again, I know you're self-taught, and I'm not sure where it comes from, because I've tried to teach myself, and I'm not there yet. This beautiful eye for design and creation of visuals. And if anyone's been in the audience of one of my keynote speeches, you've seen Miranda's work behind me up on the screen. The visuals that are bringing my stories to life are all built by you. The ideas, if anyone saw the rough drafts that I sent to you prior to you making them actually look beautiful, you'd say this guy has no clue what he's doing. But you have this I don't know if it might do a disservice to you to say it's a natural eye, but it's just some sense that you've built the skill to understand how to make things look beautiful. And I think that is, again, I really value that. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Well, the reason why we work so well together is because we both bring something completely different to the table. Like,
Yeah.
I look at you and the things that you do. Like, I listen to your podcast or watch you on stage in a live performance, and I think, wow, like I can't even imagine doing that, or how does he get so prepared, or what made him think to even ask that question. And so we just bring different things to the table. Now, for me, ever since I was a child, I loved commercials. I wouldn't watch the actual shows. My mom always laughed because I would not pay attention to a single show, and then the second a commercial comes on, I paid attention to it. There's hardly a building or a billboard that I drive by that I don't pay attention to the details, because I just am attracted to them. I like it. So perhaps I missed my calling. I have no idea. But I did spend, I mean, whenever we started our the business, the mom's blog here in Dayton, like, I had to do a lot of that work myself. And so you get into a program, and because I liked it, I invested time in learning it and paying more attention to others and try to mimic what they do. And so it's natural to me because I'm just interested in it. And I noticed it with our girls. I mean, you've seen it before. They're incredible. All of them are so good at doodling and drawing and designing and videos and photos. And like anything, if you have an interest in it naturally, it's easier to develop the skill over time. But that's just the same for you.
Yeah, it is the same. And I would say when that's why when I'm often now approached about, hey, I want to start a podcast and can you help me out? And, we have these conversations, and I always stop them and say, well, why? And usually it's an interview type show similar to mine.
Yeah.
I want to start, and I'll say why, and they'll say, well, I think it could help build my brand. I think it could help me get on stage. I think it could help like build a business. And I'd say, I wouldn't do it. If those are your reasons, it's not going to work. The reason why I think mine has caught on, I guess, however you want to phrase it, the reason why it's built a business off of just a podcast is because I think people can tell, and I'm told this a lot, that I am genuinely curious and passionate about that specific person at that moment during that conversation. And they feel the prep, they feel the work, because I love the process of preparing for the moment. And I don't think you can become excellent at anything if you don't truly love the process of preparing to be excellent at that craft. Same way as it was when I played sports, mainly as a quarterback. I love the process of preparing every week for every day, and the little weird things that you do, like the way you tape your wrist or the way that I have my notes, just I sent you the rundown, like all that stuff. I love it. And I don't think it would work if I was like, well, I hope to get more keynote speeches, or I hope to build a business. You know what I hope to do? I hope to have just one more conversation with a fascinating person on tape that maybe others could hear. That's all I want. And that's all I want to continue to want. Now, everything else comes because of that. That's why. And so it's a result of the process. It's not, I'm not trying to make that happen. I'm trying to be excellent for this one conversation at this very moment. And then everything else seems to take care of itself if I do that. If I ever lose the curiosity or lose the interest or lose the passion for being completely in the moment for this particular time, it'll fall apart. I don't think it'll work. I'm not talented enough to mail it in. And I think with anything, having that approach is important with what you choose to do. And it doesn't mean that has to be what you do for your job, or you have to build a business. That's not possible for everybody. I get it. This is just my story and what I believe. I know for you the same way, but that's how I like to approach what I'm doing and why I think it's at least so far has helped people.
Yeah, your meticulousness is just, I'm in awe all the time of it. I don't have that same gene as you. Like, I didn't know you in your football days, but you tell me like the very specific things that you did to prepare. And I'm like, that sounds so crazy. But then you've carried that over to your craft today. And I get to witness that preparation and the consistency in that preparation and what you do to prepare every single time. Like, I'm more of a wing it type person. like, like I get completely exhausted whenever you, like, sometimes when you go through like the steps that you do every single time, I'm like, I couldn't do that. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, I'm out.
No, I know. I feel like for me, it's out of fear though. You know this, like, so I
Yeah.
started as a freshman in high school, and I was scared to death. Not of getting hurt, or not even of the opponent. I was scared of my own teammates because I have this intense fear of letting the older guys down. I say it all the time. Adam Taylor and Greg Young and John Zimmerman and these guys. I was so scared as this skinny little freshman to let those guys down, that I would do whatever it took just to, like, not let my teammates down or not be the weak link in the team. And I learned that, and then I learned that, like, my fear and that how preparation could help me conquer the fear worked. And then it's like, well, this is just what I'm going to do. I've also felt the pain. This probably happened to me in college some, when I wasn't fully prepared and my performance showed, and if I didn't watch enough film, or wasn't in my playbook enough, it showed. And so that way it's like, never do that again. This is the way I just have to operate in order to be successful. And I just keep carrying it on. I wanted to bring up one of your passions that has made our family a lot better. Talking about things that we're passionate about and what we do in our free time. And one of those is the fact that you dedicate a significant portion of your free time when you're not working to studying health and wellness and what we choose to eat, how we choose to work out, all of that. And as we mentioned at the beginning, before we met, I would go out on the grill and grill chicken, and then like the side dish would be chips or something like that. And obviously my diet has gotten a lot better. I'm more healthy.
What about your breakfast?
Breakfasts were bad. I'm not even going to say they were bad. There's sugar involved and it just wasn't good. But anyway, better now, and we don't eat breakfast. So, we've been intermittent fasting for a while now, and that's made everything better too. But maybe you could share a little bit about why this is such, this is, if I would say, the thing that you're most passionate about, like from a topic perspective, it's on health and wellness. And if you're listening to a podcast, when I hear you, like you were this morning, if it's playing on your phone when you're getting ready, it's going to be a health and wellness podcast, where I'll be listening to like a business one or Joe Rogan or politics or something, and you'll be listening to something that has to do with health and wellness.
Yeah, I've always been somewhat interested, starting in college, and in the fact, I sold nutraceuticals in a pyramid scheme, and I had fun though, but I was really interested in it. Like, that's when I first started learning about it, and then over time, like as I got older, after having my fourth child, or Charlie, our youngest, whenever I started going through some autoimmune stuff, that's when I really started to diving into research. Like, I've always, like, since you've known me, we've ate pretty healthy. And there was a bout in, let's see, the twins were like 2. I did a fitness competition and kind of got into that world. And then I pivoted to just eating whole foods. But whenever after Charlie, like not feeling well and just not being optimal, and knowing what it felt like to be optimal previous to that, is when I felt like I really had to take charge of my health. And just because I was interested in it, and I knew that there was something better than taking a pill every single day. I didn't like that. So I've always liked science. That was like my strongest subject when I was younger. It's the thing that I was the most interested in. So whenever I read about those topics, I really geek out on them. But then to turn around and like teach somebody is even harder. Like you to really know the subject well enough to teach somebody. But anyways, the point that I always make to our family in eating well and just my interest in all of it is because I want to be the best version of me. And if I don't take care of my health, then I can't be that for everybody else. And I cannot fathom making poor choices every single day of what I'm putting into my body. And we only get one of those. I can't fathom making those poor choices every single day. And if it's inevitable that I'm going to get something, a chronic disease at some point in age, like if I'm going to get it at 50, if I were to make all these poor choices and got it at 40, I would be so mad at myself because I know better. And so it's important. And I think a lot of people are starting to get on that train where they start to pay more and more attention to what's in your food, like read the ingredients labels, like understand where your food is coming from. And the trend is going that direction. I just started that trend a little bit sooner than others, I believe. So I get really excited when anybody wants to hear advice or what I've learned on a specific topic. But it's all about just, if you take care of your body, it will take care of you. And I want all of us, meaning our family, to just perform and be the best versions of ourselves. And we can only do that if we give it the proper fuel.
Yeah, and I realize there are outlying health issues. I get it. I even wrote extra parts of my book about this that got taken out by my publisher because it was controversial for some reason. But I also am attracted to discipline, and I think it takes discipline to make healthy choices when it comes to what we eat and how we move our body. And I know the feeling of how I am better at every other aspect of my life if I'm making healthy food choices and I'm moving my body. You know the importance of me working out, cooling down, reading my books, and then going on a walk after that so I can have all of those things. That takes hours of time every single day.
Yes,
But
it does.
it puts me in an optimal state to be a better husband, to be a better dad, and to be better on the things that I work on. And especially from a creative pursuit, I feel like you realize I need that. I realize you need that in order to perform at an optimal level in everything that we do, especially now with something for me like writing a book or writing another book is so tough. It's one of the toughest things that I can do. And so I have to line everything up perfectly just to get into the place where I can somehow be good at that. It's tough. It's really hard, but I think all these things have helped immensely.
Well, your discipline is impeccable. Like every single morning you wake up and you have your routine, and you know, whether it depends on what morning it is, but if you have your routine at the house where you're stretching and you're drinking your water, getting prepared, then you're going to the gym and you're coming back for your walk, or if it's Sundays, you just do your walk and run. And like I am impressed by that discipline from moving your body standpoint. I think you get impressed from how healthy I eat and the decisions that I make and how easy it is to stay. But I also know more than you.
Yeah.
And I think when you know how bad something is for you and like the long-term effect, it's a lot easier to make that decision. So I often preach to our family because of those things, and eventually it'll click. But you're absolutely, it all carries over, because I don't care what your goal is and whatever it is, you name the goal. If you do not feel well, you're never going to achieve that goal as quickly as you want to, or at all. So, you know, that's why it's so important. Like you said, move your body and trigger all the right things so that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve.
Yeah, one of the shifting gears, one of the things that we've been more intentional about is our who. I've always asked the question, or I've recently asked the question over the past 5 years, who is your who? Who are you intentionally choosing to surround yourself with? Because that will become you. You'll become the average or the weight, whatever. of those people that you surround yourselves with, and we've made lists, we've taken action, we've done these things to say, ooh, that would be an interesting couple to go out to dinner with. And I personally, it was, that's one of the toughest things through this, is that we couldn't do that for the last
Right.
however many months. But being able to do that is a fascinating experience to me. And I don't love the big group dinners. In fact, I'd rather not go, even though sometimes I have to host them, usually once a year. But other than that, like, and I can manage that. I usually will just have the conversation with the person next to me or right across from me.
Right.
You could go and just own the room. That's the unique aspects of our differences, is that you love those situations and you own those rooms, whereas I find one person and talk to them the entire time. And maybe we can talk about that, but I want you to talk about us being more intentional about who we're choosing to surround ourselves with as we mature and are more intentional about our peer group.
I think something in our relationship that we've always had is we level each other up, always.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always becoming better versions of ourselves. And sometimes that means you're going to outgrow some of your peer groups or your friend groups, because they're not doing the same thing for one another. They're doing the same thing every Friday and Saturday. And every time you hang around with them, you just kind of get exhausted, because it's just complaining about whatever it is. And you and I have talked about, like, you will come back from a conversation or being around someone, you're just like, gosh, that was so exhausting. Like, I want to talk about the exciting things. Like, what are you looking forward to? What are you reading? What's your next trip? Whatever it is. But you want people that just like fuel you from like just an optimism, and fuel you from a knowledge perspective, fuel you from love. And sometimes people just aren't on that same playing field because they're not leveling up. And I think for you and I, like, we're genuinely interested in meeting people that help make us better. Like, we want to make other people better, but we want to become better. We want to learn from them what makes them thrive in their relationship and in life. And because of that shared interest for us, I think that's what excites us about those, like who we can spend our time with. And these dinners that we've been wanting to do, we've gone on several of them. And every time we leave them, we like get so excited. Gosh, we need to do this more often. But planning is always interesting, but it really fuels both of us.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's one of my favorite things to do. I'm excited to do more of it. Hopefully we can. One of the questions from my friend Nick DiNardo, I met many years ago in my leadership circle, I love, a great question. He said, what are your key family anchors? Like, for an example, would be like a Sunday dinner or something like that. And I think, and I'll answer, you can share your thoughts on it. It's something that I brought up at one point, maybe a few years ago. But one of the things we chose to invest in was to really build out a nice kind of outdoor area where we can sit and either host friends or just be together. Nice pavers, and good plants and stuff. And so we have the family dinners either out there, or if we have to go inside, we're inside, whatever it may be. But one of the activities that we've started doing a few years ago was going around the table and having each child, we have a couple different prompts, but one of them is either saying what they're grateful for, and another one is saying a positive attribute or something they love about every other person at the table. And that's probably my favorite, I would say, is when you see, I love Peyton because of how fierce and independent and smart she is. And you hear a sibling saying that, or maybe I said that, but you hear them saying that about each other. It's such a like heartwarming and awesome experience to see the love around the table from each person, and to see the excitement in their eyes, as when they receive a compliment from one of their siblings, who at times they fight, but in this moment they're loving each other, and they feel that to me. So when Nick asked about an anchor, that's the very first thing I thought of, was those dinners where we go around and say what we love about each person at the table.
Those are some of my most favorite times. I love our family dinners, and it doesn't always have to be formal, whatever. And most of the time, everyone's eaten their food before I even get to sit down. But but I must say, you get all the credit for this. And was it, I feel like we started doing this when you had read something about Sarah Blakely and the dinner table, and he said, "Where did you fail?" or something.
Yeah,
I can't.
her dad would ask them every day, like, tell me something you failed at today. So it was
Yeah.
just the kind of the idea of a prompt to then
Yes.
create some sort of dialogue. That's a good question too, which I
Hmm.
think we've done that too. But creating some sort of a prompt to initiate the dialogue is what I think is helpful.
Absolutely. And but it's so great. Like their face, it's
Yeah,
whenever another sibling is sitting there getting ready to say, and they're all anticipating who's she gonna pick and compliment, you know, and
yeah,
what are they gonna say? And they get better with time because they're just now getting to the age where they can truly pull out compliments and characteristics that they appreciate in one another. Where it was when they were younger, it was kind of just silly, but
yeah,
and we all expected the same thing, or they would repeat one another. But I really like that exercise, and they kind of do it on themselves now. They'll come
yeah,
up with their own prompts,
yeah.
like "Where's your favorite vacation?" or whatever, and they'll go around. They'll have their own ideas,
Uh
and
huh.
it's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
One of the other, I think, really positive attributes from you is kind of the model you're setting for our family, but not just our girls, but for women in general. And I wanted to bring this topic up of you now have become a mentor for other people, a lot of younger women earlier in their career, and they'll go to you and asking for advice. And I thought I want to give you kind of the platform here to share maybe what are some of the pieces. And usually when you give a piece of advice for a specific age and or sex, it usually applies to all people, but I like to narrow it down to make it more like practical for what you actually go through on a regular basis. So when younger women come to you for advice about whether it's building a career or a family or both, what are some of the key things that you say to them?
So the first thing we've always talked about is being proactive. Um, you'll always have a job description. This is what you should do. But that's the baseline. Like those are the non-negotiables. You have to do them no matter what. If you want to get noticed and if you truly care about growing, you have to be proactive. Take it upon yourself to be aware of what needs to be done and then go educate yourself, talk to people, figure out what it is that you can make your job better and those around you, their lives a lot easier. And that's just something this is definitely something that I learned back when I started waiting tables. Like you just always have to go above and beyond meeting people's expectations, and it will always get you ahead. That's just kind of been my personal experience, but I always say that that's probably the first piece of advice I give to people. Another one is your attitude, what you bring to the table from an attitude perspective, because like there's many things that you're not going to be able to control, and you have to focus on what you can control, and your attitude is one of them. So always, you put your attitude in check, and if you're not having a positive attitude and bringing that to the table, then you're only hurting yourself, because people are going to make very quick judgments. And if you are someone who's being proactive and have a positive attitude, immediately you're going to be looked upon more favorably than maybe a peer, whether it be for a promotion or whatever. Obviously you have to put the work in, so you've got to work hard. And if you put those three together, that's powerful. I don't know, I think those are kind of like, they're really simple to say, but to be consistent and actually execute them when you have all of these moving parts coming at you, or where you're bogged down with actual task of your job, it might be hard. But if you kind of like just lay those things out and say, I'm going to work on those three things, I think that can get you really far.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you developed, and I've used the word this magnetism. I think you have a magnetic quality about you where people are drawn to you. They want to be in your presence, and that is because of a combination of those things. That I know she's going to get whatever needs to get done. I know she's going to do it with a smile. There's going to be a lot of optimism. There's going to be a lot of bouncing energy, right? We are, the funny thing is, like, we have a wildly different personalities, right? You
We
are
do.
on the extreme ends of extroversion. I'm probably on the extreme ends of introversion 98% of the time. You can crush a dinner party with 30 people as far as having 17 incredible 5-minute conversations, and I at best will have one or two, and then I will be saying like, we got to get out, let's go, it's time to go. Where I was like, what do you mean, we're just getting started, where and
True.
just is wildly different.
Mm.
And the cool thing is how it just seems to mesh, like, and I don't know, I don't know, I don't fully know why. I think it's mainly because of the constant pursuit and the respect. You mentioned that earlier, like mutual respect of one another, and I think that really hits home. And I think there's a quote that we both really like that I shared for my Mindful Monday email this morning, and I shared it with you, which is a Nuri Muhammad quote, which is, your mate will either inspire you to grow into your greatness, or they will confine you to complacency. They'll either be your other half, or they'll make you half of yourself. And we've seen examples on both ends where, because of one another, they lift each other up regularly. Like you said, we both try to level each other up. Or unfortunately, the relationships where they're not even near capacity or near what they're capable of, because unfortunately of the toxic relationship. And I'm very grateful for that.
Me too.
Well, thank you for doing it. We'll see if people like it. I know I did. I enjoyed it. I'm glad we did it. We could do it again. I don't know if we'll make it some sort of ritual or routine, but we didn't get to everything, but we got to a lot. So thank you so much for being here. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Thank you.